Insights channel. Steve here. Today I'm going to talk to you about the prophecy in Daniel 9 with another aspect to it. I'm just going to read you some of the most amazing prophecy ever given in the whole Bible. This is Daniel 9:24. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up the vision and the prophecy, and to anoint the Most High. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth the commandment to restore and rebuild Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and a wall, even in troublous times. 26. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. In the end thereof shall be the flood. Unto the end of the war desolations are determined. Verse 37. And shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. In the midst of the week you shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations you shall make it desolate, even unto the consummation that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Okay, so the best of my ability, I'll discern and give some insights on these 4 verses here, from what I've studied many times over. So 70 weeks are determined upon thy people. Where's Daniel getting this from? Well, if you read in the beginning of the chapter, Daniel was fasting and praying. It says, Daniel 9:1, in the first year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus of the seed of the Medes, which was made king over the realm of the Chaldeans, somewhere around about 500 BC. In the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by books the number of the years whereof the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah the prophet, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolations of Jerusalem. So in the time of Daniel, Israel was already in the captivity of the Babylonians, and Jeremiah had prophesied before this ever happened, Jeremiah 29:10, that Israel would be in captivity 70 years, which did happen under the Babylonians. But you find out that when Daniel went to ask of God about this prophecy by Jeremiah, that God expounded upon these 70 weeks and said, yes, it's true that Israel is in captivity of the Babylonians 70 years, which did happen, but actually those 70 years are far more than just that. The Jews in captivity of the Babylonians. In fact, it's talking about from now until the Messiah comes. And it's actually talking about until he comes back the second time as well. Amazing. And you wonder, well, how can God do that? How can one prophecy given to Jeremiah then be added to? But that's how God is. He gives you insights, but then he gives you more insights the more you listen. And to Daniel, he gave a bigger picture than he did to Jeremiah, because Daniel was in those desperate times and he was wondering, how long is Israel going to be in captivity? According to Jeremiah, 70 years, and he was in the midst of all that. But now, God's revealing to Daniel something much bigger than he did to Jeremiah. It says, 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city. So he's talking about Jerusalem being something important city. And the 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and the holy city, Jerusalem, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up the vision, the prophecy, and to anoint the Most High. Well, of course, Jesus Christ fulfilled this verse here. That's exactly what he did. And I won't get into the details now, but you'll find the timing of the years is exactly correct, by the way. I'll see if I can show a little bit of it. But anyway, the Lord came the first time, And that's talking about him then in verse 24. And look at this in 25, it gives you the dates. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth a commandment to restore and rebuild Jerusalem, which was in 453, 454 BC, right? There should be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. And a week here is defined as 7 years. So 7 weeks, 64 weeks, that's 49 years. Or 49 times 7, right? Which is exactly those number of years. You add that to when the command went forth in 454 BC, you come out somewhere around exactly 30 AD. Exactly when the Messiah the Prince was cut off, or Jesus was crucified. Look at it again, what it says. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth a commandment to restore and rebuild Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks, 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and a wall even in troublous times. Yes, that's true, because Nehemiah and others rebuilt the wall in troublous times with their enemies trying to stop them. Look at this. Here's the verse I was talking about, actually, about the Messiah. 26. After 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off. There you go. And that happened exactly 383 years after given in 453 BC, the commandment to do that. It did happen exactly on time. And not for himself, and the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end thereof shall be a flood. At the end of the war, desolations are determined. Now, what that's talking about. Then the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. Well, of course, the Romans destroyed Israel and Jerusalem in 70 AD. Why did it happen? It was judgments against them because they rejected their own Messiah. Now it's talking about somebody else. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. Somebody's going to make a covenant for 7 years. And it's famously told that this is the coming Antichrist, who will imitate the Messiah and based out of Jerusalem. He shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, or 7 years. In the midst of the 7 years he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate. Even unto the consummation meaning the wrath of God, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. That's talking about all the way to the wrath of God. That's a really strong verse there, 27. It's got a lot of stuff in it. But anyway, it's talking about some character who's going to confirm a covenant of 7 years. And from what we understand is they're going to rebuild the third temple in Jerusalem. And then the Antichrist is going to come along and make Jerusalem his capital city, make an agreement between the Jews, the Muslims, the Christians, and shall be peace for 3.5 years. But then after 3.5 years he will destroy the agreement and set himself up as God with his temple with his capital in Jerusalem, and in the temple he shall plant the image of the beast, as mentioned in Revelation 13, and should cause everybody to worship the image of the beast, and if they don't get the mark in their hand or forehead, 666, worship the image of the beast, they will be killed. Well, that's the future according to Daniel 9:27. Now what I want to bring out today is something totally different, because there are people saying there's no evidence in the Bible that there'll be the last 7 years, and there's no evidence there'll be an Antichrist, and there's no evidence, blah blah blah. But you couldn't be further from the truth if you have that stance, and I'll tell you why. Because contrary to what you're taught in education in modern times, that anything goes and the truth is whatever they say it is in the education institutions, and there's many different interpretations to everything. I want to let it be clear here. Let's be clear. There are absolutes, and God defines certain things absolutely. And in this prophecy of Daniel, he's spelling it out clearly, that there is a certain time length and end of evil. there's coming an end to evil. And there's going to be a definite time frame. Not even Satan himself can wangle his way out of this one. He can't. Satan is stuck in a tunnel. He can move from side to side, but he's limited what forward progress he can make without God's permission. And we all know from knowing the Bible and the book of Revelation that Satan's going to end up in the bottomless pit, according to Revelation 20, and then he's going to end up in the lake of fire, unless he repents in 1,000 years of the millennium. The point being is something has to happen to make these crucial events of the Bible, the book of Daniel and Revelation, and 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, occur. God doesn't do things higgledy-piggledy. If he says he's going to do something, it happens exactly as written. As we saw clearly with Jesus and what he said in his words. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall never pass away. There you are. So if God says something, he's going to do it. He's not going to do something else. He's not going to half do it. And also there's another very important reason why there has to be, the last 7 years, there has to be the temple rebuilt in Jerusalem. Now I know, I was reading today, somebody saying, yeah, but Israel is a false state. The religion of the Jews was destroyed in 70 AD by the Romans, therefore the modern state Israel is not legit. It doesn't matter though. They're there. They're there, so God's got to deal with the situation. And also there's good and bad people there like everywhere else in the world. Right? People have got to live somewhere. For 2,000 years the Jews didn't have anywhere to go. So they went back to Israel eventually. Well, I'd say they're pretty much driven there actually, but that's another story. But what we're dealing with here is the point that Jerusalem is going to be the center of the coming Antichrist. You might say, well, why? Why? Israel's a tiny place, so why not America or Russia or when it's capital of some other country? Why bother with Israel so small? Well, actually, Israel has a lot of very important things about it, and especially Jerusalem. The more you study history, you'll find that out. So anyway, we know about the Antichrist. He is the imitation Messiah. And since Jesus in the future will make Jerusalem his capital too, the devil wants to jump the gun with his son, the Antichrist, and make that his capital too, for whatever nefarious reasons. And he tries to do something very different than what you see in the world today. Today you see all the politicians, and they really are a joke. And it's obvious they're a bunch of liars, and they'll jump for money, jump for anything, as long as it means power and money. But the Antichrist is not like that. As I said before, the Antichrist, he comes in peaceably, according to Daniel 11, and Daniel 9, Daniel 8, comes in peaceably and obtains the kingdom of the whole world. How? Through flatteries. It's very easy for Satan the son to do, because so far all the politicians of the world have been saying the most stupid things imaginable. And their representation there of the World Economic Forum, like Klaus Schwab, couldn't be a bigger moron, stating that by 2030 you will own nothing and be happy and eat bugs. I mean, these guys couldn't be more insane, totally nuts. But I want to tell you, the Antichrist will not talk like that. So these powers over the last 5 years, they talk as if they're invincible and everybody else a bunch of cockroaches that ought to be trodden on and exterminated. That's their attitude. But it's not going to work that way. I've noticed this week that Putin put them on notice, put Klaus Schwab and the World Economic on notice. Their days are numbered. Why is he saying that? What does he know? We don't know. Does Putin have something to do with the Antichrist? Well, if you study Ezekiel 38, 39, you find out Russia has a lot to do with the Antichrist. You also find out that Russia will invade Israel, along with Iran and many other countries, including Turkey, parts of Europe, Greece, Germany. Oh yes, it's amazing what it says in the Bible. But what I want to bring out today is the fact that certain things have to happen, and they're not open to interpretation as to saying stuff like there is no last 7 years, or there's no third temple of the Jews, or there's no evidence of that. Better read the Bible, there's plenty of evidence. A lot of people are trying to push things like this Daniel 9:27, trying to push it all the way back to the time of Christ, And it couldn't be further from the truth. And I'll tell you why. There has to come the last 7 years, because it's a countdown. It's a countdown so everybody in the know and who's illuminated, according to the Bible, they'll know how long it got left. And especially when you get to the last 3.5 years of tribulation, people will know exactly how much time until Jesus returns. So that's like God's countdown numbers. So you can be encouraged. Whoa, it's only going to last another 1,260 days. That's 3.5 years. And it says it in Daniel, and it says it in Revelation. It makes it very clear in Daniel, Revelation 11. So if you study the book of Daniel, study the book of Revelation, it's very clear there is coming an Antichrist. There is coming, his capital will be Jerusalem. There'll be a third temple. He'll set himself up in the temple eventually, after 3.5 years, abolish the religions, set himself up as God, and that's when Satan takes over, when he possesses the Antichrist. It says the Antichrist shall be wounded unto death, and his deadly wound is healed, according to Revelation 13. So some pretty striking things going to happen in the future. But why it's important to realize there is a last week, Daniel's 70th week is called. There is a last week, because it's a countdown to the lockup of Satan, all the evil forces locked up in the bottomless pit, and the return of the Messiah. That's why it's important. God does not make his word so it's higgledy-piggledy, my black hen, confusion, and maybe this or maybe that's something too ethereal. No, he's very clear what he states. And here's one of those prophecies, which is a time prophecy, makes it clear that there's coming a 7-year covenant. I don't know if that 7-year covenant done by King Charles recently, just a couple of months ago, 7-year covenant leading up to year 2030, and you probably all know about year 2030 is supposed to be the date the powers that be having total control, and it'd be like what Klaus Schwab describes. But I think we need to look more to Russia and Putin and see that just because certain people on this planet seem to be all powerful, it does not mean they will survive. As I said before, every world power at the end of its reign, whether the Grecian Empire or the Egyptian, the Syrian or Medo-Persian, they were all, at the end of their reign, they were so arrogant and cocky, they thought they were invincible, they had the whole world in their hands, and they suddenly lost the whole thing to an emerging power. And I'm convinced that's what's happening now. The emerging power is Russia, backed up by China, and backed up by a whole bunch of other nations, because they're sick and tired of the so-called democracy of the West and the so-called powers behind the West who act invincible, and they've treated the nations of the world in such, I don't know the words to say, you're seeing that what's happening there in Israel is a reflection on it, or what's happening in the United States are reflections of these things, of the arrogance of the very rich and powerful, who think they're invincible and they keep saying the truth as whatever we say it is, Well, Putin put them on notice, their days are numbered. And I think he's right, because I think that's what's ordered in Scripture. It will emerge a new power shortly, a new power, and out of it we'll see the emergence of the Antichrist. Who this guy is, I couldn't tell you. Is he Putin? I don't know. Putin's a bit old. He's the same age as me. He's 71 now. I think he could be a younger person than Putin, I would imagine. But I think you'll look to Russia, because I think that's where you'll see emerging power of the future. Russia together with China, and possibly other powers, but especially Russia. Well, I thought I'd say that today because I have a lot of friends and they write me different things, and some people believe one thing, some believe another. But I would say it's dangerous not to believe that there's going to be a last 7 years, and there's going to be a third temple in Jerusalem, and there's going to be an Antichrist come on the scene, and there's going to be a definite time frame, countdown to Jesus returning, and a countdown till the devil finally gets locked up in a bottomless pit, along with all the evil, and that the millennium will come and the rapture will come. God's written these things to encourage people. When they see these things, you will know. So when you see certain signs, he says in Matthew 24, you will know it's time. And that's why it is the way it is in Daniel 9:24 through 27. Well, I hope that made some sort of sense. I hope that was helpful. But I think we can look forward. Well, what you see in the world, what you just seen happen in Israel, and part of these are signs of it's getting very late. Getting very late in time. But we need some hero to come on the scene to rescue this world before it goes and blows itself up. Keep praying that it won't get worse in the Middle East. Pray that things will change for the better, according to God's perfect plan. Well, thanks a lot for listening. I do encourage people, do get my books. I've written now, 8 books based on the Apocrypha books, which used to be in the King James Version of the Bible till 1885, and 2 books on the paranormal, supernatural, Out the Bottomless Pit 1 and 2. I'm working on a new book which is based on the second book of Enoch, which I hope would be a very useful tool for people. Well, thanks for listening. Have a great day.